I'd like to call this March 15th Livingston County Board meeting to order. We'll have our call to order, invocation by Pastor Joel Payne. Pastor Payne.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for your many blessings you have provided to our communities. Thank you for life and the measure of health you provided to us to help us fulfill our earthly callings. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. In the scriptures, you have said that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities, and since you have established those very authorities to promote peace and justice. Therefore, I pray for this council. I am asking that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern amidst the conflicting interests and issues of our times. That you would grant them a sense of welfare and the true needs of our people, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement, personal peace in their lives and a joy in their task, personal protection of their families and health. And we just ask, I pray that the agenda set before them today give them assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work and around our communities, and let all that we do bring you joy as we do our best to serve you and our fellow man. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Payne. Now, I'll pledge allegiance by Mr. Schaefer. Okay, could I have roll call vote, please, Christy?
Sure. Vietti. Bunning.
Present.
Slagle. Ingalls.
Here.
Steichen.
Here.
Schaefer.
Here.
Killian.
Here.
Kestner.
Here.
Ritter. Gerwin. Lovell. Allen. Arbogast. Here. Weller. Kimball.
Here.
Carly. Holt. Here. Runyon.
Here.
Mays.
Here.
Heath. Weber. Young.
Here.
Yoder. Bannon.
Okay, before we approve the agenda, we have had a gentleman that I granted 7 or 8 minutes to talk about our community health care program, and he will come after the presentations. All those others, if they have something they would like to address the board on, we will take a total of about 15 minutes. So if you could keep your comments down to 2 or 3 minutes, we'd appreciate that. And then we will have another special announcement right before we go into executive session. So with that, could I have a motion to approve the agenda? Bunning and Ingalls. Any comment? All those in favor? And you've had the minutes. I hope you've looked them over. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Young, I didn't have minutes from last month's meeting
Okay.
in there.
So they didn't look them over.
No,
Okay.
but if you'd like to approve them, go ahead.
We'll wait till next month.
Okay.
Okay, with that, we have, looks like we're leading off with mental health, the annual report, and that would be Mrs. Chris Myers. So, Mrs. Myers, if you'd like to come forward.
Does anybody need any extra copies of the annual report? Good evening, Chairman Young and County Board members. Thank you for allowing me to report on our 2017 708-377 annual report. Exactly 50 years ago this month, the citizens and voters of Livingston County passed a referendum by a 4-to-1 margin to establish and maintain community mental facilities and services, including facilities and services for the developmentally disabled and the substance abusers. That was an actual quote from the newspaper. We've come a long way in 50 years. In fiscal year 1969, approximately 40 individuals were served compared to 8,300 served this past year. These people were supported right here where they live, where they work, where they go to school, where they shop, and where they go to church. We are so lucky to have tremendous agencies and programs that provide these services for individuals with mental illness, developmental disabilities, and substance abuse in our counties. These agencies themselves employ over 235 staff, many Livingston County taxpayers themselves. Unfortunately, state funding, outside grants, Medicaid, Medicare, and private insurance don't pay for many of these services or cover so little of the actual costs. The lack of parity for mental health and substance abuse services and health care coverage is a constant battle. Your health insurance is more apt to pay for greater assistance in managing your diabetes than if you have any mental health issues. This is what we do with the tax dollars that are directed to the 377 and 708 boards. We financially support programs that have no other funding stream or services that are not covered under insurance. Again, our objective is to be effective and efficient stewards of these tax dollars to best meet the mental health, substance abuse, and developmental disability needs of the citizens of Livingston County. Thank you again for your support, and our office is always open, or email or telephone call with any questions or issues that you care to discuss. So thank you very much. The paper that I passed around, the map, this shows you across the state of Illinois all of the counties or townships or cities that have 708 and 377 boards. So this provides much needed funding across the state for services in all of these different areas where our state is lacking, to say the least. So thank you again. Does anyone have any questions?
Chris, I really want to thank you. I think the board shares my sentiment that you and Melinda do a wonderful job for our residents of Livingston County, and thank you for what you do.
We appreciate the support of all the county boards, so thank you very much.
Okay, with that, I entertain a motion. Vietti, and a second. Killian. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Same sign. Okay, public health. Mrs. Hillman.
Good evening. On your desk, I put the Public Health Annual Report. It's the blue report, and I'll briefly review it for you. This is the 2017 Annual Report for the Livingston County Health Department. The Livingston County Health Department is governed by a Board of Health, which is appointed by the county board, and statute sets the type of people who can serve on the county board, such as we have to have a couple physicians, we have to have a dentist, we have to have expertise in public health. Your representative is Joe Steichen. We have a TB board, which is made up of 3 members, and we have a physician and a couple Board of Health members on that. Actually, all 3 serve on the Board of Health. Below that is a listing of our staff as of November 30th, 2017. We have a total of 28 full-time, 1 part-time, and 8 PRN employees for 37 total, and that is roughly about 29 FTEs if you use the FTEs. And when I say PRN, that's a nursing term that is as needed. These tend to be my retirees, so if I've got somebody going on vacation or sick, I call them up and say, hey, you want to come work a clinic? Or when we're heavy on flu clinics, do you want to come in and work a flu clinic? And we just pay them by the hour for that. If you open the report, then on the left side on the top is the TB clinic report. Total revenue for our TB clinic was $28,460. Total expenditures, $26,982, so that was a balance on hand of $58,438. And below that, it was the TB tax levy. We've kept it as low as we possibly can, just on a break-even basis. We have not had a case of TB in the county since 2012. Below the TB levy is the public health levy. The levy for 2017 was $372,352, and what I used it for was broken down. It supported maternal child health programs, and that includes the family planning clinic we operate, family case management, so we can use it for a Medicaid match and get 50% back from the state on those costs. WIC, which is a nutritional program, and the Illinois Breast and Cervical Cancer Program. Senior services, that was for the case coordination unit. It does the nursing home assessments, pre-choices, and it does assessments for the homemaker program for the state homemaker program. And I'll get into that a little bit more when I talk about community health care program. Environmental health are the mandated programs for food, water, and septic. Rent, I pay the county $54,500 for the building. If I can get some of that money out of my grant money, I do, so I don't take it all from the public health levy. Communicable disease and emergency preparedness was $33,000, and all money in school, and the other is for admin, or it might be for a little extra where we went over in the grants. For the public health levy for the past 10 years, you can see what we took in from local taxes and what percentage it is of my expenses. The rate, I think, is 0.055 out of a maximum of 10. On the right side is the financial report with a comparison for FY16 to FY17. What you will notice here is I'm highly dependent on grants, and this is the grants do come through the state, but there's federal money in there, so that's 42%. Fees for service for all our programs that we can charge some for. The donations are separate. I run a cancer fund. We just run it through, so it's through the county, but it's really not any county money. It's all funded through donations and memorials. The Livingston County Community Health Care Program was $225,212 for 2017. The Hubert estate was money left to the health department from a Dwight farmer, and we use that with our wellness clinic to subsidize staff time to do low-cost blood work. Humiston Trust, the $21,000 there is dedicated to our PTHS school-based health clinic, and then EPSDT is Medicaid money, and this is pretty well done on a cash basis. So total revenues for 2017 was $2,156,202. Total expenditures, $2,014,703. And if you notice on the balance line, on the bottom line, I increased my balance on hand, and part of that is because the state paid so much better in FY17 than they did in 16. In 16, I looked back and I had $202,000 outstanding for my grants from the state, and that went down to $117,000 in FY17. So the money came through. It used to range around $225,000, so it's been a good year as far as state reimbursement. The expenditures, 77% of it goes for personnel and insurance, so it's pretty well staffing. On the back page is a list of all our clinics and programs and the numbers served with a comparison to the year before, so you can kind of see where it is. If there's any questions on this report, I'll be happy to take it now, and then I'll get into some more detail for the community health care program for you. Okay, the TB is a small levy, yes, and it is incorporated. That's a different levy, yeah, and it's like, I want to say 0.003 or whatever. It's a small one, and we do incorporate it in the public health on the next one, but we keep it separate. Yep, that's the tax funds. Any other questions? Okay, I'll move on to the community health care program. This program was started in the end of 2008. It was up and running by fiscal year 2009. Did you have a question? Okay, 2009. The goal when we set up the program was to assist individuals to remain in their homes safely for as long as possible. What we recognized, and I just looked up the 2016 census, is that 17% of our county population is age 65 and older, and approximately 7% of those 17% live in poverty. To be eligible for the community health care program, you have to demonstrate a medical social need by our criteria. You have to be able to remain safely in a home environment with intermittent services, and we determine if it's safe or not. You have to be ineligible for other community programs. You have to be within our scope of services. We gave priority to citizens age 60 and older, or any of those who had been disabled, and that's really never become an issue. You have to meet our income eligibility requirements. You have to live in Livingston County for at least 1 year, and services have to be voluntarily accepted. There's two components of the program. There's the home service component, which is more of a housekeeping program. The state also runs a housekeeping program, and that will help with laundry, housekeeping, meal preparation, bathing. To qualify for the state program, you have to have assets under $17,500. They look at assets for the state program. With those assets, the home you live in and 1 car and burial grounds is exempt. We've looked at income all the time. We've gone right around less than $20,000, less than $22,000 for the program. $22,000 is about 185% of poverty on the federal level, and that's kind of what we use for some of our other programs. On the state program, which is entirely state funded, but we do have social workers go out and assess for the state program, there's approximately 120 individuals on the state program currently. And those are ones with income. They have to be over age 60 and the assets under $17,500. We've used a sliding fee scale based on the income of the individual, and the goal was to serve the next level of people above those that don't qualify for the state program, to give them a little emphasis to stay in the home as long as possible and make it able for them. Our homemaker service costs range from $0 to $20 an hour is what we charge. During fiscal year 17, 55% of those served by the home service program had incomes under $20,000. So that was the bulk of it. Not everybody qualifies for the program. They have to have a functional assessment of need, which means we go in there and say, hey, do you need help with housing, eating, bathing, grooming, dressing, using the phone? There's a whole series of questions. And then on the other side, it's, do you have somebody there who can help you do that? We say you have to have a score of at least 29, which is what the state does. They do something very similar on that. The people we served in FY17 had an average score of 40 on this functional assessment of needs. So you can't just call up and say, hey, I want somebody to come vacuum my house. You have to have significant needs to get that. We would only use the age for prioritization if we had to on the number served, and we never had to do that. In FY17, we served 33 individuals with home services for 1,178 visits and 2,088 hours of service. And when I say hours of service, that is the time we have a homemaker in the home. It does not include the time driving to and from the home. So it's in the home, and if we can do 2 hours at one time instead of making 2 trips, we try to do that. Once I was notified that the program's sunsetting November 30th of this year, I did start winding down services on that. We stopped all outreach. We have warned people that the service is going to end. Start looking ahead. For the history of the program, the highest number we served in home services was 82 individuals for 3,672 visits for 5,293 hours of service, and that was either 13 or 14 that we did it. The interesting thing I found is that in fiscal year 17, we discharged 20 from the program, and out of those 20 that were discharged, 11 of them went to a nursing home or assisted living, or they died, or one had to move in with the family. So we met our goal for the program. We kept them out of the nursing home as long as possible. And 2 of those became eligible for the state program. Once they become eligible, sometimes it's a matter of spending down assets, then we would switch them over to the state program because we share information between the 2. The average length of service that we had a homemaker in the program was 22 months for FY17, and currently there are 16 individuals on the program now, and we have warned them that it's scheduled to end. The other component is home nursing. Now, each of these programs are licensed by the state of Illinois, and we have to meet all the licensure requirements for that. The difference between home nursing and home health is home health I like to categorize as an acute care program. Medicare, insurance, and Medicaid will pay for that, but usually it's after you come home after a hospitalization. You cannot be a stable individual that can have like 3 visits where nothing changes and then they have to discharge you, and you have to be homebound to get home health. Home nursing's a little different on that. Both of them operate under physician orders, medication, and both are doing, we use RNs, which is what you have to do for home nursing. Home nursing I like to think of is more chronic disease management. Some of it's your basic public health nursing. The nurse goes in, she assesses, she might set up the medications for them so that they take them correctly in oral Mediset. She will draw blood if they need it for diabetes, or she will do the Coumadin checks for blood thinner. And these are for individuals who really can't easily get to a doctor's office for this service. And none of the pharmacies in the county will set up medications for anybody. For FY17, 30 individuals were served for 599 visits by the nurses, and 86% of those had an income under $20,000, because the state program does not do any of the home nursing. So a lot of those might be on the state homemaking program, but we're putting a nurse in there to draw blood and set up medications and do the medical part of it. For home nursing, we had a high of 42 individuals for 929 visits in the lifetime of this program. The average length of service was 16 months, with 8 discharged in FY17, and reasons for the discharge were 3 transferred to home health because they qualified, 1 died, 1 went to the nursing home, 1 moved out of the county, and 2 no longer needed the help. So it's evaluated. We have to review it on a routine basis, such as whatever they need. The cost of the program, the highest that, I just billed the county out for what it cost me. The highest was $319,000, and this past year it was $225,212, and it kind of looks, whether you look at the accrual or the cash basis. If it's the cash basis, it was down to $220,942. In FY17, we did take in $17,724 in co-pays, but the county paid for over $200,000 of it. The cost for the program, once again, is personnel, and this includes the cost of IMRF. The personnel with the fringe is 85% of the cost of the program, and mileage is 7%. But once you throw in the fringe, that's an extra 30% on top of it. When I looked at the, kind of split the programs once it was due to sunset, home nursing is about 1/3 of the total cost, and home service is 2/3. So what I've discussed with the Board of Health is I would like to try to continue at least the home nursing program and use public health dollars, since there's a definite need for it and nobody's offering that service. So that was a discussion at Monday night's meeting, and they're willing for me to try, and it's going to be an annual basis to see what we can afford. So, questions? The home service has dedicated staff. There are 2 homemakers. One of the reasons the home nursing cost is down low is because they're integrated with other programs. So they might be out, say, in Dwight or Fairbury and see an infant and then go see a senior citizen, so it cuts the costs down. With home services, we have to have we always have to have a supervisor available if there's a problem in the home, so they can call us, and they have to go out and do an in-home visit every 90 days to supervise and provide training to the homemaker. The nurses, they go out and they just do it all themselves, pretty much. So.
Oh, Melinda, I just wanted to ask, and you have had folks that originally applied to the state, got refused, too many assets, but during the time that you've administered this, the expenses are such that you've had people who formerly didn't qualify for the state ultimately qualify for the state because they keep expending assets down. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes. In fact, that's how how to left the program, and we kind of watch. We do routine assessments, which contributes to the CCU or the senior program, what I said under the public health levy, costs because they're going out to assess to see if they qualify for the state program, you know, and even though we're sharing it, we still have to have the correct personnel and writing it up because it's 2 different programs and 2 different licensure requirements. So yeah, we always do it. At least once a year, significant life change. The nurse, we do medical orders every 60 to 90 days. For the homemakers, it's at least once a year, or if there's an increased need, if they call up and say we need more service or we don't need it. So it's at least once a year, if not more often. And then if we know somebody is getting close to spending down assets, we will trigger the assessment too. Any kind of burial if they prepaid. At one time, it was probably about a year or 2 ago, the governor was going to increase the determination or that functional assessment needs score, and that got defeated. So we kept the same one, but I always said I would go with whatever score the state's using so that we have at least a bottom line. You have to need this much service.
Is there a waiting list, I mean, for people that have come to you and say, we can only take care of X amount, or, I mean, you try to fit them in, or?
It's been a balancing juggling act, and right now we have openings on the schedule, but when once it was determined to sunset, we warned everybody. When people called, we said it's gonna end. If you wanna go on a waiting list, you can. We always give out other resources. The problem is they have to have income to pay for it. So, you know, that's where it is, and it's like if we have an opening on the schedule while we still have money to operate it, we will serve you.
Okay, thank you.
Melinda, refresh what you said earlier about continuing it to use other sources of revenue within your department. I'm not sure I understood what you were saying.
What I've been looking for this year is we've increased fees slightly. We've looked for some other programs that could generate revenue to help offset some of the other costs if we can up. We're going to start a fluoride varnishing program for the WIC children, and we can bill out Medicaid for that. We are now charging the schools to go in and do vision and hearing screening, which we weren't doing before, so that's offset some of my personnel costs. Right now, yes, I have about 6 months worth of carryover over that. But the problem is I never know when the state's gonna pay me. So, you know, I've always liked to have 3 or 4 months on it, but yeah, that's why it's gonna be kinda, we'll watch it and evaluate it all the time. If we don't have money to continue it, then we're gonna cut down and tighten criteria before they can get on the program. And that's just home nursing. I can't afford the entire. You know, home nursing is probably, currently now that we've downsized it, I expect it to run around 60, 70,000. But that's because the nurses are integrated in other programs and they do it as a part-time. And it's not as much administrative costs that have to go in that program. Yes.
And to expand on that a little bit, a year and a half or maybe 2 years ago, she did raise the fee for that program. Would you like to extract
What we
on
did
that, please?
after the discussion that it was costing the county too much money is we upped the fee and tried to get more people to pay full fee to support the program. We ended up scaring more of the middle ones, and then when you look at the statistics, the vast majority are falling under the no fee.
Any other discussion with Melinda? With that, I'd entertain a motion to approve. A second? Okay, Steichen and Fannin. Pardon?
Joe?
Steichen, yeah. Okay. We just need a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Melinda, we thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Okay, now, at our Finance Committee last week, we had a gentleman come to speak to the Finance Committee, and he asked for a spot to address the entire board, and this is his chance. It's Mr. Patterson. So, Mr. Pat, and we are not taking any questions from either Mr. Patterson, or if people want to come up later, it's just fact-finding from them. So, Mr. Patterson.
Okay, I'm Rod Patterson. I live in Pontiac. I've lived in Livingston County my almost entire life, except for my military time in graduate school and undergrad. And I just want to start by telling you that I believe in fortune cookies, and a few years ago, the fortune cookie that just set my whole life on its purpose was the one that said, you are the kind of person that fights hurricanes with toothpicks. And I've got my weapon here tonight. I have my toothpick. My entire career is supporting people with disabilities and homeless people. It seems like I've always been fighting this overwhelming issue with limited weapons. So anyway, I got through security, Alina, tonight with my weapon. I want to thank you for letting me talk to you tonight, and I want to thank Alina and Christy for every time I've sent weird questions in the middle of the day, what about this or that? They've either given me the information or pointed me to the place in the website where I could find the information that I needed. After the Finance Committee meeting, I decided to change what I was going to talk about tonight, because first I was going to kind of say about the same things Melinda did, tell you how wonderful this program is, but then I realized you all know that already, and that's not really the issue here. A few things I want to share about me. I'm a fifth-generation resident of Livingston County. My grandmother's grandfather came here from New York in the 1840s. And I've been serving this county also. I know you all are here because you serve the county, and I want to thank you, for giving up your time and the work that you put into the county. But I've also served the county. First of all, and maybe it wasn't my favorite time in the world, but when Livingston County Draft Board needed people to send, I was one of the lucky ones selected by the draft board here in Livingston County, so I was able to spend 14 months in Vietnam. But also, several years ago, the state required every county to put together a health plan, and Livingston County put together what they called the I Plan, and people from all over the county came together and decided what were issues that needed to be addressed. And one of them that came up was the number of children that were being abused and the amount of domestic violence. And at that time, I served on the Coalition Against Violence that we had here. And I also represented Livingston County on the 11th Judicial Circuit's Family Violence Planning Coordinating Committee, or whatever it was, but I had lots of meetings in Bloomington with Judge Rob and a lot of the people down there. I've been on the Healthy Families Board of Directors for several years, and I've also been on the Case Coordination Unit Board. I've also been a member of the Livingston County Homeless Coalition, which really looks at poverty and issues in the county. And on another side, I've been president of the Livingston County Concert Association for at least 15 or 16 years. So if you get to come to see our great concerts, that's one of the things I work on in the county. And full disclosure, even though my dad's family has been here since the Mayflower, my dad was raised in an orphanage, and I have very little contact with my father's family, so I was really raised by my mother's family, who was 100% Danish, and I was raised in a very Danish home. I went to a Danish Lutheran church in Dwight, and if you know Dwight, there's a lot of Danes in Dwight, and if it weren't for them, a lot of you never would have tasted Ebbelskiver or any of those cool things that the Danes have brought around. Dwight, though, is really an interesting village, and I know you people from Dwight here probably know this, but the entire history of Dwight has been associated with social services. The Keeley Institute was there from the very beginning. Then there was a VA hospital, And in the 60s, the VA hospital closed and it became Fox Developmental Center. So growing up in Dwight, and I know Bob Weller, you know this as well, you live down the street. We grew up learning about addiction and medical issues with the veterans, and then getting to know people with disabilities. So Dwight, I think, has kind of a unique outlook. And when you're raised in a village like Dwight, you just grow up taking those things for granted. Some of the things I've done, just briefly, I worked at Fox Center for a long time, starting when I was an undergraduate. When I came back from Vietnam, I went back to graduate school working on my PhD, and then I had a chance to change my career because I really decided I wanted to help people rather than students and spend all my time studying music. One of the things we did when I was at Fox Center was develop Harmony Park. I know, Darrell, you were involved when we were putting together the plans for Harmony Park. It was the first playground in the entire country designed for people with disabilities, and we designed that with the University of Illinois. And it's a great place where the folks from Fox can get together with the folks from the community. When I left Fox, I became executive director here in Pontiac at Mosaic. Some of the things we did while I was there, we built a new apartment building over on Barber Street so people could live in their own small little apartments and have some more independence. We worked a lot on improving integration. We worked a lot on trying to improve benefits and salaries for the people that we hired. I was also appointed to a statewide committee on quality, and we worked really hard to reduce the cost of services and improve the quantity and the quality of what we were doing. Mosaic decided that I was doing such a good job with this that they sent me to Germany to do technical assistance with a program there that wanted to move people into the community. So I've had lots of experience with community settings. I then went to, was the CEO of the Institute on Public Policy, where I spent a lot of time in the governor's office working on streamlining things so that we could make things better in the community. So I've had a lot of things, a lot of social programs, and you all know that Melinda does a great job, but I've heard from some of you with some of the reasons that you're maybe not in favor of continuing the program. And one of them was that some people told me they just don't believe any tax money should go to help social services. And I believe, if that's your belief, you know, I can't change your belief, but I believe maybe that I don't like so much of my tax money going to other things that you all do, and maybe there's too much money going to economic development, which is a really good program, but what's the overall effect for the county? Yes?
A couple minutes.
I'm getting there. Okay. Some people say that you can get services in other places, and that's just not true either. Melinda pointed out the difference between the state program and what we're doing here in the county. The state program is acute. You're in the hospital, you go home, you get the services. There's just nothing out there for the folks that are supported by this program. Plus, the income gets involved and all the things that she talked about. Some people say that we're in competition with the private. Well, none of the private agencies I've talked to will provide services for just 3 or 4 hours a week or 2 hours a week for the month. They want to come in and do 20 hours a week or 40 hours a week or more. A lot of people have told me that the churches can step up and help these people. One of the problems with that is the churches are great at stepping in. Somebody in the congregation gets sick and they need help for a while, but what about 7 years later? Are they still going to be able to be going there and helping? And do church ladies go and give their neighbors baths and the kind of things that people really need? Plus the liability issues of going in and helping people take their medications. And even with the opiate issues now, can you trust people going in and what those medications are there? So some of you say, you know, let's just let the state pay for it all. Let's pass it up. Well, it's still our tax money, whether it's state or federal tax money going into that. I was looking at somebody that in this program that's been in since the very beginning, so let's say 10 years, And I figured out that if they had gone into the nursing home at that time, they would have now spent $720,000 on nursing home assistance. And I looked up the median cost of housing in Pontiac, or in Livingston County now, is $110,000. So let's say this woman went into the nursing home, sold her house for $110,000. I figured out that that would pay for 18 months of nursing home service. So after those 18 months are up, then they'd have to go on to Medicaid, which would leave $610,000 left that would have had to be paid out of other places. There are dwindling resources, and I really acknowledge that that's an issue. I do know that about 6 years ago, the interest off the construction fund no longer completely funded this program. And originally it was to be funded with that interest. So I'm grateful that at the time that that happened, that you all continued the program going. What I'm asking basically is for you to reconsider this program and maybe look at ways that there's other funding that could come in, some grants or something that could be used to keep this very important program going. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Patterson. Okay, moving on now on the agenda. Our action item is approval of the bills and the appointment of Gary Marks to the Dwight Fire Protection District. Weller and Bunning. Any concerns, discussion? We need a roll call vote on that, please.
Fieri. Yes. Bunning.
Yes.
Slagle.
Yes.
Ingalls.
Yes.
Steichen.
Yes.
Schaefer.
Yes.
Killian.
Yes.
Kestner.
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes.
Lovell.
Yes.
Allen. Yes. Arbogast.
Yes.
Weller. Yes. Kimball.
Yes.
Holt.
Yes.
Runyon.
Yes.
Mays.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Young.
Yes.
And Fannin.
Yes. Okay, starting with our committee report, we'll go right to the Highway Committee with Mr. Bunning, Chairman.
All righty, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have two action items here that we're going to present to you guys tonight and gals. We had a letting last week on March 6th. That was the letting for some rock, both stockpile and furnace deliver spread, oil work, and then signs and some spraying of some gravel roads to keep dust down, so calcium chloride. So, and then we had our quarterly report. So it was moved and seconded by our committee to bring forth, and I make the motion to do so here.
Okay, there's been you want to say anything on any of that, Clay, or?
Are there any questions? Clay is here if you would like to have any questions for him.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. You got both of those, Christie?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and we'll go ahead and have a roll call vote on both of them. Thank you, Mr. Bunning.
Fieri. Yes. Bunning.
Yes.
Slagle.
Yes.
Ingalls.
Yes.
Steichen.
Yes.
Schaefer.
Yes.
Killian.
Yes.
Kestner.
Yeah.
Ritter.
Yes.
Lovell.
Yes.
Allen. Yes. Arbogast.
Yes.
Weller. Yes. Gimbal.
Yes.
Holt.
Yes.
Runyon.
Yes.
Mays.
Yes.
Weber. Yes. Young.
Yes.
And Fannin.
Yes. Okay, going to the Ag and Zoning Report, Mr. Holt, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a couple partial packets given to us regarding solar energy, and also had a solid waste report. Both of these are in our minutes of both the administration meeting and our Ag and Zoning. If you'd like to know more about it, you're welcome to look at those. It did a very good job of reporting these minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Holt. Sheriff Jail and License Committee, Mr. Kestner, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The committee met March 6th. We had a good turnout there, people who attended. We had the monthly Department and Cook County report, animal control, and proactive report. The committee approved 2 rifle licenses, one for Indian Creek Golf and Country Club and one for Ratke Racing. And do we need to vote on those? No, okay. The superintendent and assistant superintendent of the jail, who, by the way, are doing a very good job for the county, I believe, reported we had a total of 137 total inmates. And of that 137 total inmates, 94 were out of the county for federal prisoners. The jail generated last month $162,624. We approved bills, and that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Kestner. Going right on to Election Rules and Legislative Committee, Mr. Fannin, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've got a presentation on proposed amendment changes to the standing rules. What we normally do is we'll give you the changes, give you 30 days, and we'll come back next month and vote on it. The proposed changes to the standing rules, one simple one is just a matter of cleaning up, is the removal of a referral to Livingston Manor and visits. The others are a little bit more meaty. We had some issues this winter with committees not being able to meet, so we are recommending a change into the standing rules that establishes that the agenda for all meetings for the board, the chair may, at his or her direction, include committee items requiring action whereby the committees were unable to meet due to a lack of quorum. Also, during his or her committee tenure, a member of the committee, including the chair or vice chair, may be removed and or reassigned by the chairman of the board. And last but not least, the chairman of the board shall be designated as an alternate committee member and may serve in the absence of any committee member during any committee meeting. Basically, that just says that the county board chairman is a member of each and every committee and will be able to fill in if and when needed.
Is that in the event that if we don't have a quorum,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Okay, very good.
Sometimes even adding him it wouldn't have helped on property in that case.
Are you saying that adding him to a committee never helps? Is that what you just said?
Oh, Mr. Ritter. Yeah, thanks for coming, appreciate it. Is there any questions or comments anyone would like to make on those changes or proposed changes?
If people read them over and they have questions, they should attend the elections legislation meeting.
That would be greatly appreciated, yes.
It'll be discussed more.
Correct.
And then it'll be voted on.
Correct.
And sent back to the full board.
Correct. Other than that, the only other action item we had was the appointment of Gary Marks to the Fire Protection District for Dwight. And we continued our discussion on the size and makeup of the county board. That will be an ongoing discussion for elections and rules for a few months to come, I'm sure. And hopefully we'll get some meat that we'll be able to bring to the full board and get some direction. Hopefully we might have something next month. So that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fannin. And for anybody, that standing rules booklet you got is a really important document. You know, you need to spend, if you haven't read through it pretty closely, you need to, because there's a lot of good information how the board is run. With that, we go to Public Property Committee. Mr. Ingalls, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First item is an agreement amendment between the county and Mosaic. As most of you remember, we have an agreement with Mosaic for the Water Street property, or better known as the Savings and Loan Building. The original agreement was intended to, the lease was intended to begin when they were able to sell their existing property. The fact is, that hasn't happened, and they would like to move ahead. So this amendment would allow them to, for the lease to start June 1, it allows them to start the improvements to the building that they had planned on doing, providing they showed that the funding to do that and complete that was available to them, and they've done that. So this agreement will begin June 1, the lease, and they have provided a drawing, an architectural drawing of the changes that will be made. That was provided to the committee and approved. it really, it just makes it into an office building is what it amounts to. There's no big significant changes, ADA compliant restrooms and so forth. So with that, and it was in the packets, I would move that that amendment to that original agreement be approved.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Mrs. Arbogast. Discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Vieti. Yes. Bunning.
Yes.
Slagle.
Yes.
Ingalls.
Yes?
Steichen.
Yes.
Schaefer.
Yes.
Killian.
Yes.
Kestner.
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes.
Lovell.
Yes.
Allen. Arbogast. Yes. Weller. Gimbel. Holt.
Yes.
Runyon.
Yes.
Mays.
Yes.
Weber. Weber. Young.
Yes.
And Fannin.
Yes.
The only other thing, at the committee meeting, we went over some ongoing maintenance issues. I would make note, as you remember, sometime back, we entered in an agreement with Farnsworth to look at various options on the H&E building, whether it be because obviously there's huge need for either renovation or replacement. It's that simple. We asked them to look at the potential costs of renovating the building to make it adequate for both public health and mental health. We looked at, to look at any existing properties that could be rehabbed for that use, or the potential of building new. I think we've come to the conclusion that they've looked at several existing buildings, and for one reason or another, they just don't work. So we're kind of down to either a major rehab, remodel, whatever you want to call it, to the existing building or building new. And they're still kind of trying to fine tune that information to give us some ballpark costs and benefits to those two options. There's another company, when Chad Carnahan was here as our maintenance director, that he started to work with called SmartWatt. I've never heard of them. They've done some work in Illinois with various governmental entities and privates based in New York, done a lot more on the East Coast. Bottom line is they come in and they outline a program where we can make expenditures on basically energy savings, whether it be lighting or building improvements and so forth, that will pay for themselves. Bottom line is you upgrade various systems at no cost, and potentially over the long haul, there's actual savings to the county. They gave the committee a very preliminary report, but it includes the H&E building and other things. So there's still other decisions outside of that before they can make a final recommendation on a project to move forward. With that, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. And for the administrative committee, the 2018 strategic plan and short-term goals, and I think everybody knows that Alina and Ginger had an instrumental part in going ahead and getting all this together and doing it. So, they're to be congratulated. I think anybody that took part in them hopefully walked away with something important. I thought they were good sessions for everyone, board members who attended, the elected officials, the appointed officials. We got some good stuff out of it. Alina, would you like to talk about that a little bit?
No, I submitted the report to you about 2 weeks ago. I think I've probably done enough talking. I do want to thank everyone that participated in this year's sessions. We did have a combined total of 39 county board members, other elected officials, department heads, and managers that participated this time around. That's an exceptional number, more than we've ever seen before. And all the sessions were completed over 7 different days, and we had a great participation. I really appreciate everyone's effort. I'll answer any questions that anyone has.
Yeah, good job. Okay, could I have a motion to approve the strategic plan and short-term goal? Kestner and Ritter. Any discussion? All All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Finance Committee, Mr. Schaefer.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. We just had, the only thing out of the ordinary, seeing about checking on bills was, Treasurer reported some challenges encountered in software that we went to at the tail end of last year, and trying to work through those on a budget. That's the challenge. So I'm sure she'll hammer through them, but probably it'll be a lot of hammering. That's it.
Okay, thank you. IT Committee, Mrs. Allen, Chair.
We met with John, and he has been meeting with departments on the new phone system changeover. He's hoping that the project will be done the second week in April. He stated that one of the features is that the phone lines can be transferred to a cell phone if needed. So if they have to leave the office for something, they can transfer it to the cell phone and continue on with what they're doing. He's also been working on setting up jail mail. That's where the mail will be scanned and it will be web-based, and the detainees will pay for the service on that. And he is also looking for a way to transfer emails from Gmail to Exchange. That ends my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Allen. Personnel Committee, Mrs. Arbogast, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did not have a meeting this month, so therefore I do not have a report.
Okay, Veterans Assistance Committee and Recreation Committee, Mr. Styson, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was unable to make the Veterans Assistance Committee meeting, but Mr. Kestner is going to give the report on that. If you would please, Ron.
Thank you, Joe. The committee met March 5th in the committee room with Mr. Bailey. Mr. Bailey presented his monthly report. The committee approved bills that were presented on behalf of our veterans in need. And that's my report.
Okay, and we're back to you, Mr. Station.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to elaborate on that a little bit. Superintendent Bailey went in Monday for knee surgery. I talked to him tonight. He's still in St. Joe's. Should be discharged tomorrow morning, and he's actually running the show from the hospital bed with the cell phone and keeping a tab on everything. So he wanted to be here tonight, but he couldn't be. So, and that ends my report on the veterans and the Recreation Committee. I wasn't able to attend that. I don't think we even had one, did we, Alina? There was no meeting. That's correct. So with that, I yield back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you, Mr. Station. We go to Housing Authority, report by Mr. Slagle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a meeting today, actually. Not same usual old stuff. The only thing interesting that happened was they talked to me about Part 58 environmental review, that the county is the responsible entity for the Livingston County Housing Authority. And apparently we have refused to help them with the review, so we need to dig into this a little. I don't know what committee meeting we talk about this at, or if we talk about it here. So I'll have to get some answers there. Basically, they're looking for either financial assistance to do an environmental review to get grants, or if not financial assistance, at least signing off on the study, the environmental review that they would pay for. And that's my report for today.
Okay, we'll have them get back to us.
No, we need to get back to you.
Yeah.
Chairman, they sent you a letter, so we'll...
I think that's what I said.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now we're going to public comment, and I'd like to keep it total to about 15 to 20 minutes. And Becca, I think you had requested some time earlier, and so I'll give you that time now. And then we'll go to the audience.
I was contacted today by Carolyn Gerwin, who could not be here tonight, and she asked if it was okay if I read a statement for her.
This is from Carolyn. Yeah. We're not taking any discussion tonight because we're not ready for that. Okay. It'll have to go back to finance. So you're invited to finance. If she's not back,
okay.
Or if she's back, she can come to finance
okay.
and discuss her feelings toward it. Okay, I'm sorry.
Nope, that's fine.
Thank you, Becca. Okay, anyone in the audience, if you'd like to address the board, feel free to come up. Just state your name, please, and where you're from, and go at it.
Hi, I'm Debbie Bacigalupo, and I'm from Pontiac now. I'm a lifelong resident of Livingston County and grew up in Solomon, and I would like to urge you to reinstate the community health care program. I was very lucky to grow up in a small town, and everybody took care of each other in the 50s and the 60s when I grew up. It's not the same today. I think this is a very important program. I think it's really needed, and unfortunately, there aren't other programs that are going to pick this up for those people that are falling through the cracks. I think Mr. Patterson did a good job of explaining some things, and I don't have a lot of facts and figures, but I have some quotes from some Americans that I'd like to share with you. I want to thank you for your service to Livingston County as members of the board, and to remind you of what public service is about. My husband laughed at me when I said I wanted to share these things. It's maybe not something that people do say to you. I've not been to a lot of meetings, but one of them is that service to others is the payment you make for your space here on earth. Another, there is no greater calling than to serve your fellow men. There is no greater contribution than to help the weak. There is no greater satisfaction than to have done it well. And lastly, I was taught that the world had a lot of problems, that I could struggle and change them, that intellectual and material gifts brought the privilege and responsibility of sharing with others less fortunate, and that service is the rent each of us pays for living, the very purpose of life, and not something you do in your spare time or after you have reached your personal goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person.
Hello, John Reese, born and raised in Fairbury.
Thank you.
I'm in support of the Livingston County Home Health Program. Just to let you know that over the past 2 years, 80% of the participants stayed at home or moved to other programs when qualified for or no longer needed the support of the program. And 3 people passed away while receiving service. 20% admitted to the assisted living or nursing home when the needs increased. The program is efficiently run. It operated within its annual budget, and half the participants paid fees based on what they could afford on their annual income. This program needs to continue beyond November 18th. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there was a lady that was going. Yeah. We'll get through these people, but I don't know if you will be. Well, I don't want discussion among board members.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I'm Alice Gordon. I was born and raised in Forest and left for many, many years when I turned 18. Came back 14 years ago, and I live in rural Strawn now. I love this community, and I'm hoping that you will continue or reinstate the home health care program. I'm a registered nurse. I'm a nurse practitioner. I feel that this program is very, very important. I am retired. I'm not working for the county. It's just so important for this program to continue, because there are many people that have great needs. And we, who have a lot of stuff, maybe don't realize it. But I really, really hope that you put a lot of thought and put your heart into it and think about it. Thank you for considering this. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else out there? Okay, now, Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I don't want your opinion on this because that's not what we're talking about tonight.
I'm going to ask you to reconsider for Mrs. Fair. I don't think it's right that the board should decide what people can and can't say in public comment. I mean, we can limit the time, but we can't stop people from getting up and saying their piece. I just would like for you to reconsider. Thank you.
Let her talk. Becca, it seems like the straw poll up here says to let you talk, let you read. It's against my better judgment, but you come ahead. No, we will not. Yeah.
Let's see. This is from Carolyn Gerwin, as I had said. She states that she's sorry she can't be here tonight due to a family commitment, that Mrs. Fair has graciously agreed to help me share some information about the home care program, which I have been gathering this past week. She wanted to thank Melinda and Alina for providing the information that she requested. First, the reason the county recipients, quote, fall through the cracks, unquote, of the state program is that the county's need assessment does not take into account the person's assets, only income. We also do not count the assets or the income available to the client's spouse or other household members. County recipients can have up to $50,000 in income and unlimited assets and still receive benefits paid for by other Livingston County families who are impoverished or struggling to thrive themselves. Even if the eligibility requirements were tightened, it would be wrong for the county to continue the program. A, welfare is not a county function. B, the government, any government, is very inefficient when it comes to providing social services. For example, in fiscal year 2017, the county program provided 2,508 hours of actual care. We spent over $200,000. We paid $81 per hour to provide basic maid service, cooking, and LPN level care. B, we are competing with local care providers who are trying to provide a charity or make a living, and that is not fair to them. C, government is not able to provide charity. Using power to take income earned by one group of people to give it to another is not charity or compassion. The concept of charity is rooted in brotherly love, or some would say Christ-like love. Some of you don't believe in God, and I get that. I didn't until I was 29 years old. But if you want a free and prosperous country, you have to at least act like a Christian, because that's the key. Why? Because love cares about the individual. The giver knows the person, knows their need. Love is merciful but not blind. Love teaches right thinking and discourages bad behavior. Love wants the other to become empowered, not entitled, covetous, held down, or held back. Government does just the opposite. So I'm all for compassion and charity, but we must care for each other according to our individual gifts and callings. That's real charity. Thank you. Carolyn Gerwin.
Thank you, Becca. Okay, now before we go into executive session, we have an announcement that I don't want to see made, but that's not my choice, or it's not Uncle John's choice. It's from one of our board members. So, Mr. Gimbel, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve the citizens of Livingston County, but I'm putting in my resignation tonight as my family is getting ready to relocate out of state, and I want to make sure everyone's aware that I'm stepping down. So again, I thank you. I thank my wife for putting up with long nights and many, many meetings, and my family, and I thank the citizens. Thank you, Chairman.
And Justin, I expressed to you what a great job and what a good board member I thought you had been during your time here, and I know I speak for the entire board, and we wish you and your family nothing but the very best of luck. So good luck in your journey. Pardon? Yeah, he's taking it out. Okay, I think now we're...
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session pursuant to 5 ILCS 122 C1 personnel matters.
Thank you, Mr. Fannin. Is there a second? Mr. Steichen. And
Mr. Chairman, would you indulge me for a second before Mr. Patterson gets out of here?
Yeah.
Mr. Weller.
Mr. Patterson?
Very nice.
I asked if the chairman would indulge me for a second before you left the room. And I'm just, go with me here. Let's lighten things up a little bit. We're too doggone serious. Rodney, what did I buy from you when I was in the 6th grade? We both wish we had that. What did I buy from you when I was in the 6th grade? You were putting your rock, I was going. We both wish we had that stranded wasp today.
I thought it was gonna be cigarettes.
Yeah, Shaggy, have a lucky strike. Can we stand up, take a break?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thought it was cigarettes, Bob.
Get a vote. Get a vote on that.
Fieri?
Okay, all those in favor?
No, we have to do roll call.
Roll call vote.
Fieri? Bunning?
Yes.
Slagle?
Yes.
Ingalls?
Yes.
Steichen?
Yes.
Schaefer? Killian?
Yes.
Kestner?
Yes.
Ritter?
Yes.
Lovell?
Yes.
Lovell?
Yes.
Allen? Arbogast?
Yes.
Weller? Gimbel?
Yes.
Holt?
Yes.
Runyon?
Yes.
Mays?
Yes.
Weber? Young?
Yes.
Bannon?
Yes.